Well, evening, everyone. For our wonderful Alabama Republicans on the line tonight in our Calling Alabama series. This is our sixth call tonight. And this is Chairman Lowe calling from Birmingham, Alabama, our Alabama Republican Party headquarters. And we're so honored to have all of you on the line. And those still getting on the line, we expect a lot of friends tonight to be on our call. We are honored to have a very special guest that will be calling in tonight, the one and only Mr. Donald Trump, point of introduction. But we have some facts and some very interesting things about Mr. Trump while we're waiting for him to buzz us on the phone. Mr. Trump was born in New York City. He was born to a real estate developer. He is one of 5 children. And at the age of 13, he began attending New York Military Academy, upstate New York, where he emerged as a star athlete and a student leader by the time he graduated in 1964. He attended at Fordham University and then the University of Pennsylvania of the Wharton School of Finance, where he graduated with a degree in economics in 1968. Mr. Trump joined his father's company while still in college, and the company focused on middle-class rental housing in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. In 1972, Mr. Trump finalized his first multi-million-dollar real estate transaction, and the table was set. In 1983, did you know that Mr. Trump owned a football team called the New Generals? In 1996, he became the ownership of Universe organization, which produces the Miss Universe, Miss USA, and Miss Pageants. In 2007, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his work in his very successful show, The Apprentice. With a conglomerate of businesses worldwide, Mr. Trump has written bestseller books, which became famous for their entrepreneurial guidance. He is the only presidential candidate that we have ever heard of to have his own board game called The Game. He is a consistent vocal critic of Barack Obama, and he's even offered to play the president in golf with him at any of his golf courses if he ends his term early. We are waiting on the line for Mr. Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. How are you?
We are great. Where are you tonight, sir?
I'm in New York City, and I'm getting ready to go in not too long to Iowa, where we just got some very wonderful poll numbers, and we'll be making the rounds during the course of the weekend, Iowa, New Hampshire. And one of my favorite, I must tell you, we had such an amazing day in Alabama, in Mobile, Alabama, about 2 weeks ago. We had 31,000 people, as you know, at the stadium, and it was a tremendous night, and I loved it.
Well, we're so glad that you're able to step back into Alabama on the phone. And by the way, I'm from Mobile. I knew exactly where you were. I've been there many times myself, and we're glad you had a great time here in Alabama, and we know that you'll come back to visit again. Now, I did want to let you know who's on the line tonight, so you'll know who's listening in. We literally have hundreds and hundreds of Alabama Republicans and grassroots activists. They're very anxious to hear from you.
Great.
I'm going to have to tell you, Mr. Trump, this is our sixth presidential candidate we've had calling into the series. We normally get about 35 or 40 questions. I've had over 120 questions for you.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine.
I've narrowed it down to about 12 good ones. So just why don't you go ahead and say hello to everybody, and when you're ready, I will start with the questions from Alabama Republicans who would like to get to know Donald Trump.
Okay, I'm all ready. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, super. I think a lot of people know about you already, to tell you the truth. All right, let's start off with some questions. We have a lady named Elaine. She lives in Bill County, and she wants to know who are the types of people you would appoint to your cabinet or to look to for guidance as president.
Well, unlike this administration, I'd be appointing very, very capable people. It would be dependent very much on what positions you're talking about. One of the things that's so important in our country, because we're just being beaten so badly by so many countries, is trade. And I have some of the greatest traders and some of the greatest negotiators in the world already lined up. People like Carl Icahn, who's one of the tremendous businessmen of the world, actually, and he wants to get involved in negotiating trade pacts with China, with Japan, with others, and I have many other people that want to get along and, want to get involved. And so it really depends on where we're talking and what we're talking about. When I look at somebody like John Kerry negotiating that horrible with Iran, that deal that is one of the worst transactions of any kind I've ever seen. It's grossly incompetent. And I watch him, the way he negotiated from such weakness and almost like begging for them to make a deal. And we end up with this horrible deal that will come back to haunt us. So, I want to appoint really great people, talented people, people that are tough but have heart, but people that get it done and get it done right. Because, we owe $19 trillion, which is, I used to say 18 just a little while ago. Now it's up to $19 trillion. And our country's in serious trouble, and we have to change it, and we'll change it. Believe me, I will change it fast, and we're going to have a lot of wins if I get in.
Well, speaking of government officials, you led right into my next question. Gilbert from Jefferson County, which is in the Birmingham, Alabama area, said, when dealing with 535 senators and House members, 50 governors, and well over 100 nations of the world, how will your style be applicable to the different needs of these different groups?
Well, I really think that, for those that know me, I've been in politics for a long time, and usually I've been on the other side of the fence. I've been a big contributor to people, and as a businessman, I was very honored when one of the big magazines called me a world-class businessman, but, I've made a tremendous amount of money. I've built a great, great company, and the reason I say that is not because of braggadocio. It's because that's the thinking that our country needs. We can't continue to make bad deals with everybody. Even if you look at Sergeant Bergdahl, we get a traitor, and 6 people died looking for him, and they get 5 of the killers and bad cookies that they wanted, and they wanted for years. So we get Bergdahl, a traitor, and they get the 5 people that they most wanted in the whole world, and they're right now back on the battlefield. And that's the way we negotiate, whether it's trade or whether it's anything else. That's the way we negotiate. So we have to be able to understand the other side. Over the years I've made, and you've probably seen this and read it, but I've made many great deals with China, and where I came out on top, believe me, and whether it's China or other countries where I'm dealing. And at the same time, I've had great relationships. One of the big magazines said that what do the Chinese most want? And they had 10 different items, and one of them was anything Trump. So they understand my views, but at the same time, they have a certain respect. So I think that what would happen is I'd get along great with these countries, but at the same time, we won't be patsies and taking advantage. They've taken our jobs. They've taken our money. They've taken our base. They've taken our manufacturing, and we end up with nothing. So that will change, believe me.
Well, we're going to go from one branch to another. Let's go over to the Supreme Court branch. We have an anonymous Republican Party member, and they said the next president could have the opportunity to appoint 2, 3, or maybe even 4 Supreme Court justices. Which of the 5 current Republican Supreme Court justices most closely mirrors your views? And I'm going to read those 5. Samuel Alito,
Good
John
man.
Roberts, Clarence Thomas,
Right.
Anthony Kennedy, or
Right.
Antonin Scalia. Which one of those 5 or more, if you have more than one, that you mirrors your views?
Well, Scalia is excellent. I'll tell you, Clarence Thomas has been a very conservative voice, and I think he's probably somebody that's not written about too much or talked about too much, but he's certainly been a conservative voice. Roberts, I'm very disappointed in because he could have killed Obamacare twice, and he decided not to, and he's really a Jeb Bush appointment because Jeb Bush was close to him, and he's the one that got his brother to put him on the Supreme Court. And frankly, his view, what he did on Obamacare, I think he can never make up for that, no matter what his views are at this point. Justice Roberts, it was a disgrace. His 2 votes, and he would have killed it the first time, and he would have wounded it badly the second time, and it would have ended up going away. But he voted twice in favor of Obamacare, so that you can never make up. But those 5, or at least let's say 4 of the 5, are excellent.
So you find yourself on the rail of thinking about very conservative. That's really important to a lot of members of the party because, once they're there, they're there for a very long time. And as you mentioned, they have the ability to strap things down on our country that actually will hurt generations maybe down the road. And so I know the party members are interested in seeing how Mr. Trump would, what is he thinking on the Supreme Court?
Well, I would say that it's such a great question, and I think it's probably the most underrated part of being president. But I would have, number one, I would have very great legal minds because I think we owe that to ourselves and people of people of substance. But I'd want them to have a strong conservative bent, and in particular, a few of the ones you just mentioned before have been excellent in every way. And again, Judge Roberts in many respects has been excellent, but what he did on Obamacare by allowing Obamacare, because it has to be repealed and it has to be replaced with something far better and far less costly, both for the government and for the people. If you look at what's happening with Obamacare as an example, it's going through the roof. The costs of the premiums are going right through the roof, and the deductibles are so high that you virtually aren't going to be able to use it. You're not going to be able to get anything for what you're paying these high prices for. Premiums are up 45 and 50% over the last year and year and a half, and it's going to be just unsustainable, including for the country. So we will repeal it, replace it with something much better, but it could have been done at the Supreme Court level, but Justice Roberts let us down.
Well, those are very comforting words to conservatives, not only in Alabama but across the nation as well. So let's talk about the Trump administration for just a second. If elected President of the United States, Kathy from Montgomery County wants to know, what would be your first official act as Commander-in-Chief?
Well, I think I could have a few ties. I mean, one of the things that I would make sure is that our military gets stronger. We need to have a really powerful, really strong military and hopefully never have to use it where they'll say, hey, we can't mess with them. And I can tell you that I'm in the real estate business, and all the time I see listings come across my desk with bases being sold. They're selling bases, naval bases and Army bases and Marine bases, and they're selling them and all over the place. And you almost say, how many can they sell? How many do they have? But we really have to strengthen our military. We cannot, especially in these times. So that would be one. Taking care of the vets to me is very important. Our vets are being treated terribly, and that goes hand in hand with strengthening the military. But our vets are being taken care of very badly. Obamacare I already spoke of, and I would strengthen the border. I would build a wall, and I would absolutely strengthen the border. And the illegal immigrants that are here, I will get them out so fast that your head will spin. Long before I even can start the wall, they will be out of here. We have tremendous problems of crime. If you remember, when I first announced, it was misinterpreted, and the press absolutely took my words and chopped them up 15 different ways. And I will tell you that many of these people have apologized to me. Because of what I've been saying and what I did, including at my announcement when I announced I was running for president, what happened is we brought up the whole subject of illegal immigration. And now it's probably among the very hot points, and maybe a lot of people think it's the hottest point. But we will stop people from coming into this country illegally. There will not be illegal immigration. We'll have legal immigration, but no illegal immigration. And you will have a much safer, much finer country because the crime is rampant. You saw what happened to Kate in San Francisco, the beautiful woman, wonderful woman who was killed. And you saw so many, even in California just last week, a woman, 66-year-old veteran, was raped, sodomized, and killed by an illegal immigrant not supposed to be here. And so many other cases. These are two cases, so many other cases. And people now see it. So that will stop, and they will be out of here fast. The illegals will be, and in particular, the bad ones. A lot of the crime that you see, whether it's in Chicago or Ferguson or St. Louis or Baltimore, a lot of the gangs are illegal immigrants. And those people will be gone, and they'll be gone permanently. They're not coming back, believe me.
Well, on that note, I'll just jump down to the immigration. We have a lady named Linda from Houston County here in Alabama, and she says in your illegal immigrant planning, what do you see as an appropriate or approximate time to rounding up and processing the deportation of thousands of illegal immigrants from our country? Is it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Have you thought about a process in order to do this?
Yeah, it's called really good management. It can be done. And, our country doesn't even know what the number is. It's been 11 million for years, but they don't know what it is. It could be much more than that. But we're a nation of laws. The word illegal, as in illegal immigrant, means they're not here legally. We have to get them out. And if we have wonderful cases, they can come back in, but they have to come back in legally. I think it's a process that can take 18 months to 2 years if properly handled. I looked at Ben Carson, and he was saying, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work. And it wouldn't work for him because he has absolutely no management capability. But when you know how to manage like I do, I built a great company. When you know how to manage like I do, that process can go very quickly. And humanely, has to be humanely, but it can go very quickly.
Okay, super. Let's just jump to a totally different topic. John from Tallapoosa County here in Alabama wants to talk about climate change for a minute. He wants to know, do you believe climate change is as big an issue as the current administration portrays it to be?
I don't think it's a big issue at all. I think that the administration has no clue. The climate change that I'm most worried about is nuclear climate change, because we have people that don't know what they're doing in the White House, don't know what they're doing as leaders. And when you look at the pact with Iran, or you look at so many other countries now, North Korea has nuclear weapons and others have nuclear weapons, this horrible pact with the 24-day waiting period and by the way, we never got even our prisoners back. They're still over in Iran, and one's over there because he's a minister, a Christian minister. It is so bad, and I think the climate change that I'm most concerned about, especially if you have incompetent people like we have now, is of the nuclear variety, because we are in serious trouble in this world. And it's not because of the fact that, climate change, I don't know, are they making this up or what? I believe there may be some changes. I don't think, and it's called weather. It's not called, man-made for the most part. Remember this, China is spewing fumes into the atmosphere totally unchecked. We're stopping our factories. We're doing so much. I believe very, very strongly, and it makes us very uncompetitive. I believe very, very strongly in clean air. That's what I want. That's going to be what I'm going to aim. We're going to have clean, beautiful air. But beyond that, I do not believe in man-made climate change. There could be a little effect, but very little effect. It's called weather, and it changes over a period of time, and it goes up, it goes down. I don't know if you know that in the 1920s there were magazine articles and magazine covers called global cooling. They thought that the Earth was cooling in the 1920s. Now they call it global warming, and then that wasn't working so well, so they talked about climate change, and now that wasn't even great. Now they call it, as you know, extreme weather, because they have to get a caption that's going to fit. No, I am not a believer. We have many, many problems, and they are far more important than that problem, even though our president, I think, feels that's the single greatest problem that we have, which shows you how totally out of touch President Obama is.
I think he has shared that with us more than one time. One of the parts with climate change is the massive federal regulations, and as a businessman who works all over the world, you probably deal with these federal regulations in your business, and it can be very smothering to small businesses and large as well.
Well, it's killing small businesses, and it's killing a lot of industries, and we're competing. We're supposed to be competing in the world market, even though our negotiators are no good because we have people that don't have a clue. But we're competing on the world market, and we can't compete because we have all of these regulations and all of these stops that make it impossible for us to compete with other countries. So we have far bigger problems, believe me, than climate change.
Agreed on that one for sure. Let's go a different route. Leonard from Dallas County here in Alabama got a very interesting question. He said, you personally have a long history as a Democrat, so he wants to know, how do you explain the change to people who might be suspect of your changes to get their support?
Right. Such a fair question. So I live in Manhattan and have lived in Manhattan as a young man. I moved from Queens and Brooklyn. I moved into Manhattan. And if you were in New York, and in particular Manhattan, basically it's probably the number one Democrat stronghold in the country. There's almost no such thing as a Republican. I was a Democrat for a period of time, just like Ronald Reagan was a Democrat for a period of time. In fact, he was a liberal, pretty much liberal-leaning Democrat. And over the years, it changed, and it changed for him, and I knew him quite well. I helped him with his elections, and he liked me, and I liked him. But he was a Democrat, and he became a conservative, not overly conservative in all fairness, but a conservative Republican. Now, in my case, it sort of happened the same way. I was a Democrat, now largely because I was never thinking about running for office. And if you're not thinking about running for office, whether you're Republican, it just wasn't in my mind. If you would have told me that I was going to be a politician starting 3 months ago, I wouldn't have believed it, right? And probably a lot of people wouldn't have believed it. But over the years, I became more conservative, much more conservative, and now I'm a Republican, and I'm a Republican with a conservative, very conservative bent.
Well, that's fantastic. Let's go to Shelby County, a gentleman named Patrick. He wants to talk about NASA for a minute. We'll make sure you're aware Alabama is a huge part of the space program. I don't know if the country knows that or not, but
right.
We have the U.S. Space and Rocket Center located in Huntsville. It's a massive industry here in our state. And Patrick wants to know, do you believe in the importance of America's space program? And if so, what might be some of your plans for NASA or the program if elected?
Well, I do believe in it, and I believe in it for a lot of reasons. Space, number one, but maybe even number one, I'll put it ahead, is military superiority. I mean, that's where it's going to be. I mean, we have to be able to do things that if we stop, and I know the spending is way down and they're cutting constantly, and that seems to be one of the things they cut early, but I do believe in it for the two reasons, space and exploration, which ultimately can lead to things that we're not even thinking about right now, and the other is military. It's very important. So I'm very much in favor of that, and will be protecting that as an industry.
Super, super. All right, we're going to run to taxes real quick. That's a real popular subject in our state right now. I'm going to combine three things for you, very simple. Ronnie from Limestone County wants to know, would you be in favor of the fair tax if elected? Art from Jefferson County wants to know, are you in favor of getting rid of the IRS? And we have Lynn from Tallapoosa who wants to know, here are any specifics you might have on concerning federal taxes. So fair tax, getting rid of IRS, federal taxes.
Great questions, and basically it's all the same question. And I'll be announcing a policy on taxes very soon, over the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and a lot of people know some of what I'm doing, but we'll be doing a tax reduction. I will be doing a tax on some of these hedge fund folks who I know very well, extremely well, who pay almost nothing relative to everybody else, and it's unfair. They make a tremendous amount of money. They pay very little tax, and they go around bragging about it. But I'm going to be proposing major tax cuts for the middle-income people because they deserve it. You know, our middle income and our middle class has been absolutely decimated by too much taxes, too much regulation, too many problems, and it's not the same as it was. We built the country with the middle class, and now it's not the same. So I'll be doing a tax plan probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks. We'll be announcing something that I think is going to make people very happy. It'll be a reduction. It'll be a major, major simplification. And, you know, I have an expression, H&R Block, we're going to put them out of business because we're going to make it simple. When people are making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they have to go to H&R Block and pay a lot of money in order to, you know, get some advice because of the complexity of tax, and they have a simple return, but it's so complicated, then that's wrong. So we're going to be doing major simplifications and also cutting of taxes.
And your thoughts on getting rid of the IRS?
Well, at this moment, and by the way, the word fair tax, you know, you could talk flat tax and fair tax, and there are many different ways. At this moment, the fastest thing to do is simplification. Later on, we can start thinking about very seriously the fair tax and flat taxes. But right now, what I want to do is simplification, and for that, obviously, the IRS would remain. but in a much smaller form, because what I have planned will be so much simpler that even from an accounting standpoint, the IRS will be cut way back.
All right. Fantastic news. We'll be looking forward to that announcement. Victor
Good.
from Chilton County, home of the Peaches in Alabama, has a question about Cuba for you. What is your intention with the Guantanamo base in Cuba?
I would keep it. I want to keep these people out of here, and I would keep it. And I know Obama wants to close it, and he wants to give the land back to Cuba, and all of those things. I would keep it, and I would keep them out of here, and I'd load it up with the bad ones. I would load it right up with the bad ones. There's plenty of them out there.
You're going to put it to use. That's what it sounds like.
Well, it's crazy what we're doing and the way we, I'm a very, very strong believer in the Second Amendment. I'm a very strong believer in police have done an incredible job, and they're not being allowed to do their job, and this is why crime is rising and murder rates are rising all over the country. This is why when you see Baltimore, what happened in that first evening, just that one evening, they destroyed that city. They brought it back 25 years. And, there's always going to be some bad apples, but it's a tiny, tiny percentage. And we have to give the police back the respect and the power. Otherwise, everybody's in big trouble.
You used a very important word. It's called respect. When people have respect for each other, then their behavior changes. And that really isn't. That's really important in today's society. We seem to have lowered our bar so much. Let's go to Camellia in Calhoun County. There's an education question, and I'm a former public school teacher myself. She wants to know, would you try to take power away from the U.S. Department of Education and give it back to the states?
I would. Jeb Bush is very much in favor of Common Core, which is basically the bureaucrats are running in Alabama and other places locally. They want to run it from Washington. And I'm not saying all bad people. They're not bad people. Some probably are bad people. But they don't really care to the same extent as, let's say, the people in Alabama care about their own education, or the people in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, any of them. It's much better local. So I want to bring education back to the local level. I don't know if you know that we have per capita, per student, we have the highest cost for education in the entire world. And yet we're rated number 25 and number 28 in the world. In other words, there are third world countries that do a better job on education than we do. And that's largely, in my opinion, because of what's happening in Washington and because of the fact that they're taking education from Washington and in Washington. So I don't want Bush's plan of Common Core. I want to bring it back to the local level, give the money back to the states, and let them do the education. And that's going to be a much better. And we won't be number 25 and number 28 in the world anymore, believe me.
Yeah, I read an article once, and it said if we take all the money that we've ever spent on education in this country and add it up, we should be number one across the board in everything. If you're going to attach a dollar to it, then we would be number one.
Well, when you look at the bureaucracy, because I've seen it, when you look at the buildings in Washington and the incredible, massive building and all of the people in that building, and I think most of them, for the most part, what do they do? What are they doing? So it's a disgraceful situation, and I think we have to. I know we have to bring it back to the local levels. We'll save money, and our children will be much better educated.
We're going to go deep into Alabama here for just a minute or two. I know your time is limited. We're so grateful for you to be here tonight. But
it's my honor.
Thank you. Adam in Limestone County wants to talk about the agriculture industry and how important it is to our state. He said farmers have expressed concerns, once again, over federal regulations, most recently, for example, the EPA Clean Water Act. What would you do to help Southern farmers remain profitable and encourage a new generation of farmers, which we've got to have, to stay in agriculture?
Well, it's such a fair question, and it's so horrible what's happening with the Environmental Protection Agency. And we all want clean air, we want clean water, but they've taken it to a level now that's impossible. You probably saw the disaster that happened 2 weeks ago where they released the wrong valve, and it was the EPA people that did it, and they don't even know has it destroyed the river or not. Nobody's really sure at this moment. But we will be working with the EPA situation. I can tell you that when I build buildings, they have shower heads in areas where there's tremendous rainfall. They can't get rid of the water. I'm not talking about deserts. I'm talking about where there's tremendous rainfall. and they have restrictors on shower heads and toilets and sinks and everything. You can't get water out of them. And what happens in that case? People just run the water twice as long. This is not even twice as long. How about sometimes 10 times as long? So we have to get rid of a lot of the rules and regulations having to do with EPA, and they're out of whack. They're put there, I don't know, it just seems to be further obstacles. And the farmers are being absolutely killed because the farmers, they've been there for hundreds of years in some cases, and now it's making it impossible for them to farm. So farmers will love me. I will promise you this. The farmers are going to be voting for Trump. I love the farmers.
Well, listen, we have tractors at my home, so you're welcome to come in anytime,
good.
And we'll have some fun. A couple more questions. Again, I know your time is limited. Virginia from Dale County wants to know. She said that you are for Second Amendment rights, but at one time you supported the Clinton assault weapons ban, and she wants to know if this comes up again, would you support this ban again? Why or why not?
No, I wouldn't. I am a Second Amendment person very, very strongly. And, it's never mattered that much from a standpoint that I was never in political office. I never had to think too much about it. My sons are hunters. They're great marksmen. They're members of the NRA, and so am I, by the way. But they are really members. I mean, they take it so seriously. And they're actually very talented marksmen, shots, and they're incredible. And they know everything about guns and weapons, and they're very, very pro-Second Amendment too. My two sons, Eric and Don, and they were telling me that, and I'm seeing over the course of period, you have to, number one, you need protection. You also need protection because if the bad guy has it, you want to have it also. So I think very important. But they were saying something that to that extent I never knew, that it's really unbelievable. It's like some people go out and play golf. Other people, for entertainment, they go out and they shoot. And I understand that. But going back, I think just from the standpoint of protection, if we do that and if they follow through with those kind of rules, regulations, you know one thing, the bad guys aren't going to be listening, but the people that obey the law will, and that puts them at a big disadvantage. Mm-hmm. So the answer is no. I'm all in favor. I'm 100% Second Amendment, and I believe strongly in it.
Yeah, I've always thought that was interesting, that if we apply a law, then the criminals will obey them. And that makes perfect sense, right?
Well, the criminals are going to keep them. They're not going to care. In New York, they passed a thing where... In New York, they want to have something where you can't put more than 7 bullets in a magazine. Well, in other words, you have a magazine that holds many more, but you're only allowed 7. Well, people that want to obey the law, they're going to put 7. But the bad guys are going to put as many as they can get in there, and that's the way it is. So it's so ridiculous.
Exactly. Laws kind of go right over their head. They're not interested in law. So
100%.
We have one last question, and then we're going to let you say goodbye or your parting words to our good friends on the phone here in Alabama. I wish you luck. Kevin from Shelby County, which is around the Birmingham area again, wants to know, how do you plan to unite the party to win the general election?
Well, it's been a very interesting period of time for me because I've had tremendous poll numbers, especially over the last 2 or 3 weeks. You saw the CNN poll just came out today, and I was way ahead of everybody. And, when I look at my competition, I see Carson was in second place, but Carson's been a doctor, and he hasn't managed, and he's had very few people. I've employed thousands and thousands of people. I've given jobs and health care and education to their families. And, most of these people have never employed anybody or 2 people. Or, it's just one of those things. And I know how to win. I know how to beat other countries. I've beaten other countries. I've beaten China in deals and done very well. And I know how to make our country great again, and that's something we have to do. And I think in terms of uniting the party, we have to win. We need victory. It was very sad last time when Romney lost an election that should have been won, and he wasn't effective. I don't know. Somehow the last month or so, something happened to him, and it just didn't work out, and it was a very sad thing to watch. And that was an election actually that should have been won, and it should have been won easily. I think the best thing we can do to unite the party is get somebody that's really doing well. And, I don't know if you saw that in virtually every state I'm beating, of the ones tested, I'm beating Hillary Clinton, and not only leading the Republicans by a lot. Second place, I guess second place is 18 or 19, and I think that's going to probably end up going down, frankly. And then the people after that are quite a bit lower. I think the best thing we can do to unite the party is win. We have to start winning because we've just lost too many of these elections. Been won. This last election, to lose it was a disgrace. So we're going to win, and we're going to make America great again. And that's what because the bigger problem than uniting the party is we have to save our country. And if we don't save our country, we are going to have, we need our borders, we need our military strengthened, we have to take care of the vets, we have to do so many things, whether it's Obamacare, repealing and replacing, so many different things we have to do, but it can be done. And I actually think we can make our country greater than ever before. But this election is going to be very important because once we go too far down, once that debt gets over the 20 trillion mark and all sorts of other things start happening, it's going to be a big problem. So I think to unite our party, we have to have that attitude of winning, and we have to go out and win, and we're going to have the most beautifully united party that you've ever seen.
Well, we look forward to that opportunity, and I want you to know as I travel and talk to Republicans around the state of Alabama, the one thing I do tell them, and I'm very serious about this, it kind of mirrors what you just said, is it's not the Democrats' fault if they win. It's our fault if we don't get in there and stop them.
True.
So that's what we need to do, and we look forward to this process. We'll vote on March the 1st here in our primary, and we appreciate your time tonight so much. We know that you have Alabama in your sights, and I have a feeling we'll be seeing you again, and we will welcome you back to one of the reddest states in the nation. And thank you for your time. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the Alabama Republicans?
Well, only that 2 weeks ago I had one of the best evenings, and we set the all-time record. So it was Mobile, and we set the all-time record for the primaries, the 31,000 people that came to see me speak, and it was like a total love fest. It was an incredible evening, and it was just amazing, and it's the number one. It was the number one place in the whole country for Democrats, Republicans, anything. So I have a great spot in my heart for Alabama. It's just an amazing place. They love football. I love football. They started to ask me what my favorite team is in Alabama, and I said I want no part of that one because that is a losing question, right? But I will tell you, it's a place that's really a spectacular place, and I really love it.
It would be easier for us to talk about politics and all these other topics and go into the world of football in the state of Alabama. You're probably very wise to stay away.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Trump. God bless you and in your travels, and Godspeed in your quest for all of us to unite and love our nation.
Well, God bless you too, and thank you very much, and thank everybody for listening.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a great night.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.